Hello, hello, hello again. It's me, Coral. I'm here today with another horror trope video. This one's a little bit different because I only have 3 books here instead of 4. I did have a fourth, I had to be honest, I did have a 4th one chosen for this, but previously I tried to read one of the author's books and I set it down. I don't know if I'll ever return to it. And then that kind of really put me off. Not that that author's writing was bad or that the book itself I had been reading was bad. I just thought it was really boring. So it made me really not want to read the other book that I was going to include in this because it's by that author too. So I only have 3 this time. They're all vintage horror, and oh yeah, I chose these because they all have kind of, I guess, Maynard's House, a little less so with this cover, but they all have kind of just this stark white cover that I found really interesting. And I don't have books from any other point in time, really, that look like this, and I thought that was interesting. So here I am. These don't share like a theme as far as the plot goes. Well, actually 2 of them are a little bit similar. I don't know what I'm saying now. Everything I said is a lie now. But I'm going to start telling you a little bit about Maynard's House by Herman Raucher. So Maynard's House is kind of a haunted house story, kind of like a spooky ghost story. It's about a guy named Austin. He has just gotten back from Vietnam and he decides instead of going home, he is going to live in his pal Maynard's house. Maynard was in the military with him, and Maynard was killed in combat, but gave this house to Austin basically in case anything happened to him. So Austin goes to Maynard's house. It's in Maine. It's very, very remote. Like, he has to take a train to get to like the tiny town, and then like the house is like not even in this tiny town. So it's a very remote, and Austin is not somebody who is super familiar with living the way that Maynard did. You know, having to chop your own wood, having an outhouse, having to raise your own crops and can things, and, you know, in that style of living on a homestead and being self-sufficient. He's definitely not used to that. But he's really looking forward to it, especially because he had a real bad time in Vietnam. So Austin gets settled in. There are some kids from a nearby homestead, I guess, that visit him. This part is super fucking weird to me because while Austin is not super old, he is an adult, and he really kind of gets enamored with this teenage girl who I think was like 16, and that part was a little bit creepy to me. But basically they're the only like human contact he has is these 2 little weirdos who come and play pranks on him. And some spooky stuff starts to happen in Maynard's house, and Austin doesn't know if it's like something really spooky. He doesn't really know if it's something like PTSD from being in combat. He doesn't know if it's just him being kind of an outsider in this place, you know, like if he's scaring himself because he just moved here. You know, he's not a veteran of living out in the woods by himself, you know what I mean? It gives you a lot to think about because, you know, you reading as this character are also not really sure what's going on. I liked this pretty well. I thought the ending was pretty good, but like I said, that weird thing with his like teenage neighbor is just weird. Probably less weird, kind of, like in society, I guess, when this book came out in 1980. The next one I'd like to tell you about is School Days by Robert Hughes, and this was published in 1982. So this is, but what was the son's name? Okay, so one part of this book that I really was confused about, because Pete Brady, I think, and his dad, John Brady, but the author calls both of them just by their last name sometimes. And then there's also kind of like a timeline where we're talking about John Brady, the father, in the past. And so like there's like 3 Bradys and I'm not always sure which one is which, you know? So I really did not like that part of this book, because it led to me having to reread things a lot because I could not figure out which fucking person and when, which Brady when, you know? But this is about this small town police officer, and basically he has a son named Pete, I think, and Pete enrolls himself in these scientific experiments that are happening at the college in the city that they live in, the small town that they live in, because he's getting paid to do it. But he doesn't want his dad to know because his father, John Brady, the police officer, has kind of a sordid past with the doctor who is dead now, but did have something to do with the beginning of these experiments, and why they're taking place and stuff like that. And his wife had worked for that doctor, and he thinks that the doctor somehow caused her death. And some murders start happening, and they think it might have something to do with the scientific experiments going on at the college. And besides some really weird, cringy sex scenes and this whole Brady thing going on, I thought this book was pretty fun. It was readable. The writing style was just really easy to get through. There were some good gory scenes in this. The resolution to who is killing people is kind of interesting. And so I think that this is probably above average, I would rate it. Especially if you like cringy sex scenes, because sometimes they are really funny to read and laugh at. Like there's one where the guy's like licking a girl's eyelids and stuff, and it's like, does this person know what it's like to have sex? Because no one's ever licked my eyelids, at least. Maybe I'm missing out. Anyway, my last book here is Brainchild by Andrew Neiderman, and this one is a little bit similar to School Days because it actually has to do with another teenager who's very interested in scientific experiments. Her name is Lois Gilbert, and she kind of comes off as just like dead inside, and she's very analytical and really loves to experiment. And her parents don't really like it. They want her to be normal and go to the prom and learn to drive a car and stuff like that. They think, like, her whole family thinks she's just kind of weird. Lois becomes very interested in behavioral sciences. And she gets the opportunity to take some college courses. So, of course, she wants to take a behavioral science course. And she gets this idea about an experiment that she wants to perform on her family. And yeah, things get a little bit hairy from there. It's interesting. It's a little bit creepy. I think Lois is a really interesting character because, like I said, she's so analytical, and it almost comes off as like a person who just does not have feelings, even though she does. And that shines through sometimes, but you can definitely tell that, like, it's just like at all times the cogs are turning inside her head, and she's always trying to figure out a reason for things. So it's interesting. There is a character in here that is labeled as fat, and they really rag on that character a lot when they talk about her. So if that bothers you, maybe skip out on that, I suppose. But I like this book. So those are my 3 books for this horror trope video. My next one will be in January, so 2021. Crazy. I hate it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you guys soon.